Hello?
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Sorry about that, man. Sorry being late.
Oh, not a problem. I'm glad we're able to do this.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Me too. Super excited.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be able to talk about differences in the brand new album, The Family Portrait, coming out in August.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate you giving me the time.
Oh, sure thing. So, for those that are not familiar, like, how did this band come together?
Whew, man. They came together through a lot of meeting of friends and getting together to work things out. We came together previous like 2013-ish, but members were changing. But 2015, we kind of solidified where we were going. We were called The Difference at one point, but then we switched to Differences. To the point of coming together, our very first show, it was supposed to be me playing guitar and Nicholas, our drummer. He was supposed to be the singer, but we booked a show, had no members. When throwing all the members together, we couldn't get a drummer. So I was like, you know what? I'll just do the frontman thing. Nick, you play drums. Me never having screamed or sang live before, I was like, I'll just figure it out. That was like 2013. And, since then I've been stuck here. So, yeah,
It's amazing how those situations can really
man,
form who you are as well too.
right.
I mean, especially when you've never fronted a band before, you never stood in front of a band before playing, and then all of a sudden you become the front man, and then like 10 years later, here you are.
Man, and I'm just getting better at time. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here, but people enjoy it. So hey, we'll keep going.
So thinking about that, like, how do you think that you've improved as a front man and a vocalist in that time?
Oh man. It's crazy. I with this album, The Family Portrait, I am like I'm finally at a place where I was proud to hear myself. When we got those like first masters back, I got really emotional because every time else I would listen to albums and I would just feel like cringy. I'm like, I want to retrack everything. I don't like it. I don't like how my voice sounds. It's so gross. And so I spent a lot of time, just really trying to hone my skills. And I'm really proud of what I have now, to the point of I'm doing like low screams on this album that I've never tried before on other albums. I would just stick to my one kind of range. Um, Dynamics with, going a little faster, longer breaths, holding notes longer. Like I just all the years of experience and YouTube University of watching videos of like how to expand. I'm very proud of myself on how this album has come out, and I'm even stoked to see how I'm still learning and what I'll do on the next one coming up too.
Yeah, and that's definitely the way it should be. I mean, it's like the more that you do it, the more that you should be able to progress, the more that you're able to record. Like, it's awesome to see like in a decade again, like you went from having absolutely no experience and being thrown into that situation to now having that confidence, and now with having like a real proper full length here, where
Mhm.
it's just like the mix and the master just sounds incredible, the production, and of course the songwriting. It's just incredible to see the musical diversity that's going on. I mean, and of course the dynamics as well too. I mean, whether it's going faster or slower, whether it's going heavier or softer, it's just like being able to show all of these different inspirations that you've had musically and lyrically. It's so hard hitting as well too. It's just gonna be so cool to see where the band goes from here, because if this is what you're doing now, it's only gonna get better.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like that, and that's the thing. Like as you said too, it was the when I heard, like I said, when I heard the like final drafts of everything, I was mainly emotional because I realized all that time where I did smaller projects and everything, and how torn up my voice would be like after those recording sessions. I was realizing that I was doing like back-to-back days of a full length album. I'm like, you finally get it. Everybody tells you, you gotta walk before, you gotta crawl before you can walk, before you can run, things like that. But you want things. You want that instant gratification of like, I want to be good at it right away. And I give that advice to everybody now that like when they tell me, oh, I want to start getting into it, I tell them like, well, do it. And you might hate how you sound at first, but that's the journey, because now I didn't think I would make it through a full length, but it was pretty easy. So I'm like, yeah, I'm proud. It was tough. It was tough. A lot of almost vomiting, but it was still I'm really proud of. And I noticed that that's the journey. That's the journey you have to take to get to these points where you want to get to your mountaintop.
It's true. I mean, you just have to get yourself out there and
Yeah,
do it. And I can think of that so much with myself with doing interviews, because when I first started off, I had absolutely no experience talking to bands, and I had a hard enough time being able to talk to people in person, let
yeah,
alone
man.
anything else. And then, coming up now on 12 years later, I'm able to have these great conversations with people, and I don't really feel that nervousness I used to of just being able to speak out loud. And it came from all that experience. And now this is interview 893 that I've done. So, it's just like it comes with a lot of practice. And I hated my voice, especially when I started. But the more that you get more comfortable with it, the more that you do it, the more you just feel comfortable with it, and the more that you can plow through it.
That's awesome. Yeah, like, and I was gonna say, I could have fooled me, man. I was like, wow, that's to hear you talk. I'm like, oh yeah, he's just naturally meant for this, and that's what happens. People are like, oh, they're just naturally good at it. It's like, nah, it took some practice. So all the listeners, for everybody that see these things, they're like, oh, I'm gonna give it a shot. Do it. I mean, it won't be where you want to be on the first day, but you'll get there. You get there.
Yeah, as long as you have the passion for it and you have the
Yeah,
drive for it, it will
that's what
get
matters.
there.
Yeah.
So thinking about that as well, like, how was it like starting to write for the family portrait?
Yeah, it was, there's never been a point where as a band we wrote things that we weren't extremely passionate about. Like we can proudly say we never put out something that we were like, oh, let's just put it out. Like if we put it out, we put a lot of thought to be like, no, this is what we want to represent us. So for this process too, the, that goes without saying, we started writing this album in like late 2019 after we came back from like a tour. Uh, and this version that everyone's getting, like this, the family portrait itself, because it wasn't called that, this is like the third, I think it's like the fourth or fifth iteration of what we've been writing. We've written this record so many times, and it's just like the songs are fine, they're fine, but it wasn't hitting the tone that we really wanted. That, and especially like in late 2021, where we were like, okay, no, the idea is this. We want to go for something like this, and we started rewriting again around that. So yeah, like it took a lot of time and hard work and passion about it. Like that word you use is very key for us, passion. Because at the end of the day, this is art to us. We don't mean to be snobby about it, like, oh, it's but in generally, like, we understand that this is creating something with our names on it. And it's not necessarily about our names, but if it's gonna have our names on it, we want to feel good of like, yeah, man, that feels like us. So
So thinking about that, is there like any particular examples of like how it started off until it finally became its final form?
oh yeah. I would say that there's only like maybe technically one song that we wrote from the beginning made it to this album. Out of all 11, there's only one song. 62 was the only one that like really made it. But in that process, when we were right, we had some stuff. We're like, oh, this is cool. This is kind of cool. It was really with journalists. When the song Journalists that we just put the music video out for, when we wrote that, we all had that kind of that light bulb, that Leonardo DiCaprio moment, the meme when he's like, he snaps at the big points. It was that of like, that's it, that's the tone. We want the album to match that. That's it. And we started writing kind of around that feel and everything. So yeah, it was basically that. Journalist was kind of a blueprint for what we really want to do.
And it was so cool to see that that's a single as well too, because knowing that that was the point where you wanted to change the album and to have it match that tone is also one of the first tastes that people are getting to check out from this particular album, if not checking out the band for the first time.
Right, exactly. And that was the thing. Once we started writing everything, we knew Journalist was going to be like the first single. We were like, oh yeah, no, it's going to be Journalist, but we changed and we did Body first because we really are a live band. Like the energy we bring when we started playing these songs live to try them out to see how they felt, Body was just insane, and we were like, all right, it's got to be Body. We got to put that one out first as a tribute to like all the fans that have and friends that have been here with us. Thank you. And as you hear this new sound we're doing for the new fans, like this is what we're about. This is what we've always been about. This isn't some like, it is a drastic change, but it's not some super drastic change. If you listen to the old stuff and then this stuff, you can still, we hope that you still feel that heart and soul of old differences compared to here now, you know.
Oh, for sure. And, just between those two songs, I mean, there is quite a bit of difference in between those two songs, which gets someone like me excited because it shows all the different styles that can go in within the band. And, like even between those two songs, it doesn't show off everything, which is
Yeah.
great because
Yeah.
it makes you excited to be able to check out the whole album and see what else is going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the key thing. It is tricky when you're a band, you especially young bands. One of our favorite things is when we play a show and like it's a new band playing for like the first time. I love when they start playing and they have like that really incredible like heavy songs. They want to be like, oh, we can play heavy stuff, and then they go to like pop punk stuff next. I'm like, I love that because you're so brand new that you had that wide eye of like, I want to do what I want to do everything, and that's great. Like it's sad that a lot of bands kind of lose that. Although sometimes it's good because you want to narrow it down, but it's sad that a lot of bands lose that. So for us, that's always been a thing of like, man, what do we like? Like we want to play this, okay, with experience in writing music, we know, okay, we can mold that into this so we can still have that feel. And that's a big part. That's a big part of, one of the main jokes for us is it's kind of important to be called differences, but all your music sounds the same. So, you don't want to have, you want to kind of, make sure that your name matches your music because that's ironic.
Oh, for sure. So, thinking about that as well too. I mean, of course, musically, there's so many great moments that are going on throughout the entire album, but also lyrically, what's going on? It's quite punishing knowing what's going on in there. I mean, there's some heavy moments lyrically that's going on. What was that like for you to pen the lyrics for this?
Yeah, it's very heavy. It is an emotional toll. It's tricky because as where I've grown in writing, I used to have the small philosophy makes it sound like it's a big word, but basically the small philosophy of writing of like, okay, if I'm gonna write something that's like quote unquote depressing, or sad, I want to try to end it with the uplifting note, like, yeah, well, you'll get through it, things like that. But this one was very more like, there's not always a happy ending. Just the song's just over, and it's like, oh, that wasn't. But that's with one of the premises of the band itself is we don't, especially me as a front man, like I fully understand the responsibility of standing up there with a mic and people have to listen to what I say, right? So what I don't want to do is come off like I know all the answers because I don't. I'm still learning. I've been doing this for a while. I'm 29 years old. Been doing this. I've lived, it's still a young life, but I've lived a life and a lot of experiences. So I don't want to pretend I have all the answers, but when writing this music, I want to show that you're not alone in going through the heavy things. And you're not alone in the fact that you'll come to the end of the heavy thing and you don't know what the lesson you're supposed to learn. Life just sucked for no reason. And I like what comes through that. So it was the fact of at the end of the day, we don't want to say this to just be so overly negative because we don't feel like the music is that way, but we don't want to say to be overly negative. We just want to bring up the point that in life, one of the hardest things we have to do is face this negativity. And that's hard to do. When the album talks about loss, grief, um, done things being done to you, and it's like it's hard to face those things. But that's all we ask is that you take that first step, and that when you face those things, hopefully you realize that this band is here. It may not be here physically with you, but we wrote this stuff so you have something that can fit along to and recognize that you're not alone as you face these things.
And that is such a great message to be able to put out there too. And, I'm just thinking about that myself too, because I'm turning 35 next
Right.
month and I feel like I don't have any of the answers yet. And I'm still struggling to find out, how to get from like point A to point B sometimes. And, with mental health struggles that I've gone through and life struggles, like sometimes just bad things happen to you. Sometimes you're able to take a message from those bad things. And, you just never really know. But if you're able to take something cathartic, like what Differences is doing here, and knowing that you're not alone in your feelings, the stories and the situations might be different, but a lot of the same feelings that you have are very universal. And if you're able to take something like that and you're able to apply it to your life and just know that if nothing else that you're not alone in your feelings, that is a great message to put out there.
Right. Yeah, and it's it's tough because it is the whole thing going back to the differences thing. It is, we don't want to be cliche with like you're not alone, because even with saying that, we're saying you're not alone, even though we may not understand what you're going through, because everybody's different. You know, we all have our different ways of grieving. We all have what affects you, or what affects me slightly might affect you heavily. But we don't downplay that. Like, it's whatever you're going through, you're just at least not alone no matter what. So yeah, yeah, definitely agree.
So thinking about that as well too, like when you are putting a pen to paper and you are putting these lyrics out there, and obviously with the heavy situations that you're talking about, like how is that for you? Like when you look back and you think about the lyrics.
Uh, it's it is wild. There's, you know, I growing up listening to all these bands, and there's just like these iconic lines, and it's just like, oh man, like the Hot Topic t-shirts that have just some of the best lines of from lyrics on them, you know, and you just dream of like, when I first became a frontman and I realized the right amount of lyrics, I was like, man, it'd be so cool if this was on the shirt, and it'd be cool here. But you know, you kind of lose that, like when I lost that feeling, or that chasing that, when I realized that I'm just trying to write something real. And if it becomes a some kind of viral thing because people really bond with it, great, that's great. Um, but it's like you say, it's even the harder thing of like, what happens when I write these lines that are very personal to me, that other people have to re-say to me all the time. That is like, oh man, like I have to every time I play this song, I have to relive those emotions I was going through. And it is tough. I won't even lie. It is tough sometimes. Gets very emotional on stage. But at the same time, I think that's what pushes me, is the fact that it's helping other people. That it's like, yeah, it has to be said, you know, and I'm taking my own advice of like, yeah, but we face these things. Like, and so that's what it is. I think for me, I leave it, a lot of it in the recording booth. The recording booth is the like, okay, face the fears, talk about what's wrong, get it out your system. Because it's, you know, if there's tons of other bands that are uplifting and talk about things, but not even, I don't mean to make myself sound like I'm super special or like the one, but you just, I realize when I walk in there, you don't know that it might be me that has those keywords that really help someone. So I got to give everything I have when I write. I can't, you know, half do it. I got to put my all into it.
Exactly. And that's not taken away from the bands that are
Right.
focused way more on the positive side, or the
Right.
bands that focus way more on the negative side. It's just like it shows both sides. And it's just like I know from my own experiences, like sometimes hearing some of that the darkest stuff out there can be very therapeutic for me, because it's like knowing that other people have gone through struggles that are similar to mine or worse than mine, and it gives me a different perspective on things. But when you're able to hit both sides of that, like what Differences does, and you're able to just like make it as authentic as possible, whether it is a little more positive, a little more negative, it's more realistic. And it's great to whether it's showing the authenticity of the music and being able to show all the different sides of what you want to be able to accomplish, and lyrically being able to show what life is all about, from the darkest moments to more uplifting moments. It really shows the human experience, and that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, you know, and that's what it is. Like, the whole fact of differences is about, it's you not being the same as me is a good thing. Like, it's not supposed, life isn't supposed to be about this exact same shared experience. Yes, the shared experiences we have is beautiful, that helps us come together, but it's those different cultures and different, you know, perspectives that helps put it together, put the whole picture together, you know. So that's, we try to just be real about it and be human about it, so people understand that, like, you know, I may not be going that exact same thing, but yeah, I get it. That helps me forward. So yeah, that's one of the whole goals for differences itself.
Oh, for sure. So thinking about that, like obviously with the album coming out in August, and knowing that you guys are on a label, and just all these great things that are happening, like what's going to be going on after the release of the album?
Yeah, we have a few shows. We have some content we're gonna drop. We're looking for a few tours to get on, where we're trying to plan that stuff out, some behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, it's mainly just this push of playing. Like, we love, absolutely love playing shows. We love being on the road and playing shows. It's some of the best times we ever had. And then we're just back to it, slowly just writing some stuff, you know. So that's yeah, the goal is just to get out there and just grind and play some shows and see some meet some new people, you know?
Oh, definitely. And just like thankfully being able to hear the chance to be able to hear the album in full and really start to connect to these songs. I'm just imagining like how crushing it's just going to sound in that live setting as well too, because it sounds great on record, but that live experience I know is something else.
Yeah, again, I'm just the front man. So they're like, all right, it's time for loading. I bring my backpack and the mic. I'm like, all right, check, good to go. So shout out to, everybody, Gene, Nick, BJ. These guys, Gene being the guitar player, Nick the drummer, BJ the bass player. These guys have locked in like with their sound and their gear and understanding things and putting in the time into their craft. Like as much as I put in the time sonically for my like these guys are insane to the point of going to rehearsal spaces, like random rehearsal spaces, and the sounds and tones we're getting is like it's intense. It's everything. Like it's to the point that we at one point we with Gene we were very much like we just want to make some noise. Like let's come in there angry and make some noise. And I'm like yeah let's do it. Let's get all the screeching. And I'm like why does our screeching even sound super clean? Like it's crazy. So shout out to them like just putting in the time to get things right and being meticulous about it because I understand how like annoying that can be. Half the reason why I was like, yeah, I'll stay as a front man because you mean I gotta like, make sure my guitar's checked, I got some new cabs, and I'll just do the mic thing. That's it. I'm good. So shout out to the band for like, bringing that energy to even the point, the small thing of they're the main ones that are like, we'll set up some tracks, just with like some textures, stuff like that. But some practices were like, go without tracks, let's practice without the tracks to make sure that if it breaks down, because that's happened a few times, tracks don't work. And we don't want to be that band that's like, well, there goes the set, the tracks aren't working. Like, all right, I got 1 minute to fix it, can't fix it, let's just do it. So shout out to them for being like, no, let's be prepared. Let's come out swinging every single time we play.
Oh, definitely. And it's so great to see that you guys are doing that because that is such an important thing and having that real feel behind it. I mean, of course, having the backing tracks and everything can really heighten the
Right.
experience. And I know that's like a really controversial take, especially when you look at that on social media. It's like, do you have backing tracks? Do you not have backing tracks? But if you can do either one, then there's no excuse. You can do whatever you want to. And that just reminds me back yeah, I think it was like 10, 12 years ago when I was in a band and a band had to cancel because their iPod died before they went up on stage. They could not do the show because their iPod died.
That's too far. I
Yeah.
am on that debate. When it's your whole show is ruined because of the backtracks, I'm on that side. I'm like, all right, maybe you got to rethink this thing. I get it, I do get it, but you got to rethink this thing. I definitely get that. It's only funny because at one point, right before we got all this, we were going to three-piece it. It was going to be me, Gene, and Nick, and we were like, all right, we can just put some bass stuff on the backtracks and we can go from there. But like, I think we did like two shows like that, and we were like, nah, let's just get a bass player. Like let's not run the risk. Let's just hit it. And that's when we got BJ and everything. And it's been the best decision we made. So
Oh yeah, I mean, backing tracks can be such a great thing, and there's some
yeah,
bands that really sound better with the backing tracks. Whether they're adding orchestration behind it, whether they're adding electronics behind it, whatever the case is. But as long as everyone on stage is able to play and they're able to have that real feel behind it, there's no greater feeling than that. And when you're able to have real bass behind the heaviness that's going on in differences, I just imagine that those shows just got even better once the bass really came in.
man. Yeah, it again, BJ came in on a different level, just nasty. Because again, you can have your backtracks and you have the bass playing a certain way, but his improvisation skills and his understanding of music when there's so many times where we'll be going in practice and then he just hits some kind of different like bass groove or riff. I just stop. I'm like, that's the nastiest thing ever. Do that every single time from here on out, like it's so it helps to have that human feeling behind it.
Oh, for sure. And and speaking of that, I mean, it seems like there's so many great things that's going on in the world of differences right now. Of course, with the family portrait coming out in August, planning live shows, potential touring that's going on in the future. I imagine new ideas that are coming around as well too. I'm not sure how fleshed out everything is, but the fact that you're working on new stuff, that's just so cool to hear. And it's going to be awesome to hear what that sounds like when that comes to fruition. There's so many great things that are going on right now. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about all of it. I mean, whether we talked about some heavy stuff, whether we talked about heavy musically stuff, yeah, bands quitting shows because their iPods die, it's just like there's so many things that we covered here. And it was great being able to talk to you about all of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. I always joke that I'm like the worst person for the band to interview, but the best person for you to actually interview because I just start leaking stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing this and that. But I know I got to realize that I got to feel like I feel Gene's presence like from far away right now. Like just being like, don't say it, don't link that, don't link it. But I really appreciate coming on. I love it. This was a great time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, awesome. I feel the same way. And I just love having these real conversations like this
Yeah.
instead of just having like a Q&A and stuff like this. Just being able to get to know a little bit more about you, your personality, the band, all of that stuff. And I think that's very important. And I wish more people were doing that. But, and speaking of that, again, I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this. Again, The Family Fortune by Differences coming out in August. I've gotten the chance again to be able to check this out, and I really enjoy everything from start to finish, all 11 tracks. Whether it gets into more of the spoken word stuff, whether it gets into the near deathcore moments, whether it gets everything in between. I just love the musical diversity that's going on. I love the message that you're trying to set out, and I just can't wait to see what you guys are going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, really appreciate that. I'm really glad you like that. Yeah, August 26th for everybody. Check out our Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. There's a link. You can go ahead and it takes you to our merch store or our website where you can go ahead and start pre-ordering the album, see the music videos we already posted, and check out the merchandise too. Shout out to Ryan Lyons who helped set up the whole merch spread. Her and Gene, this is their vision, and they absolutely nailed it. So
Oh, perfect. Being able to plug that stuff, great way to end it. And again, one last time, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I had a great time being able to do this. I'm so glad we were still able to make this happen. And I'm going to be getting this out as soon as I can to be able to help spread the word and everything. And I just want to thank you again for the great music, the great interview, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
hey, you too, Josh. Hope to do this again with you soon sometime, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by the time that the next recordings come out, whether it's an EP, a full length, whatever happens, it'd be great to be able to catch up and see where we are
Gotcha.
then.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. You have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.